I'm going to talk about them very briefly now. We're going to read through the text. You'll read it on your own first. And then we're going to discuss how they work within the confines of the argument, okay? So a concession. Only write down the highlighted portion, okay? This is a time when you acknowledge that your opponent has a valid point. Valid in this sense meaning true, okay? When you're making your argument, you will concede a point. We'll discuss if this is a good idea. So, a concession acknowledges that your opponent perhaps has a valid viewpoint. Okay. A rebuttal, again, only write down the highlighted portion. It follows with a reason why an argument is wrong. Okay. Since we're reading two essays today, you'll see how one of them kind of does this with the other. They are not directed at each other, like one did not purposely write to the other, but they follow similar arguments. When you write your argumentative essay in about 2 days, you'll be thinking about doing this in one of your paragraphs. You'll get a choice, but we'll be thinking about doing this in one of your paragraphs. Is it a good idea to concede a point? Do we want to provide a rebuttal? If we do. All right, very quickly, let's take a look at our author. This is listed on the page prior to the essay. Okay, so if you have the essay on the right-hand side, it's on the left. 396. Okay. All we're thinking about right now, which rhetorical appeal are we thinking about when we look at the about the author section? Say it a little bit louder. Ethos. Okay. That is credibility. Is the author credible? Let's take 1 minute on your own. Read through the about the author section. Annotate 2 details that speak to the ethos of the author. 1 minute. All right, take those 2 details, turn to your partner, and share those with them. What details do you know about him that tells you a little bit about his ethos? Does he have any? 1 minute with your partner. Go. All right, somebody share with me 1 detail in the about the author section that tells us a little bit about his ethos. Joel.
He served the government.
He served the government in what capacity? Do we know?
1993 to 1977.
Right, that's when, but what was he doing during that time?
He was the Secretary of Labor.
Secretary of Labor. Does anyone have any idea what that means? Oh, you don't know. They don't have any idea what that means? Secretary of Labor. What is labor? Work, right? So we can consider that it has something to do with work, right? What else do we know about the author? Secretary of Labor, work for the government. Yes. He's published 12 books. Does that matter at all? You say it shows experience. Okay, perhaps. Anyone else? Did anyone else say he published 12 books? I think it's a good thing to notice. There are reasons for that. What else? What else can we determine about his ethos or something about the author?
He's the Chancellor Professor of Public Policy in the University of California.
Okay, does that matter at all for his ethos?
Yeah, because he works at a university, which is kind of what the essay is about.
Okay. I don't know if you guys heard that. What Matthias said, you Chancellor Professor of Public Policy at the University of California. You did not make a note of that, I might, and here's why. He tapped into the idea that if we're talking about the value of the college education, the person writing this essay worked at a college, okay, or university. That matters if we're reading about the value of the college education. You determine why that matters, okay? Any other detail that might help us understand the ethos of our author? Yeah?
He served in the administrations of President Gerald Ford
Okay, why does that matter?
It shows that he was trusted by the government and by two presidents.
Two presidents? You're right. There are two, but there's another one, right? So they separated that. Secretary of Labor with Bill Clinton, but he also served in the administrations of Ford and Carter. Okay, so 3 presidents really in total. A lot going for him there. I want you to consider that everything that we just said. I want you to consider that whenever you talk to with your partner too, as you read this text. It's relatively short. It's about 2 pages. Okay, if you flip the page, you can see when it ends. It is. I'm sorry, I lied. It's 2.5 pages. Okay, that's on me. I thought it was 2 pages. Here's what we're gonna do. If my clicker decides to work. Okay? We're gonna start by doing an independent reading of this. Okay? I'm gonna give you about 7 minutes. Don't worry about the time. I'll handle that. But I'm gonna give you about 7 minutes to read this text. Independently. Put your pencils down, highlighters down, all of that. I don't want you to annotate right now. I simply want you to read that first time. Okay? I'll put arrows there so you know for sure not to do this. When you get through your initial reading, that is, you've read all 2.5 pages, and if we still have time, if I haven't told you that we're done, then you can go back and start looking at specifically the argument, parts of the argument that we discussed with Obama. Does he include the different parts of an argument? But if you don't get through it, if you just finish in time, that's fine. You're gonna have a chance to talk about this with your partner when we're done. And that's the point in time when I want you to go through and start thinking about interacting with the text. But right now, I just want you to read it. I want you to try to understand and decipher what he's saying. You've got about 7 minutes right now on your own. Just read through this text. If you finish early, start annotating, but not until then. Okay, 7 minutes, and you can start now. Okay, you have 2 things to share with your partner. You have 1 sentence that summarizes your initial reaction, and then you also have your impressions on the text as a whole, as it relates both to what we just discussed in terms of rhetorical argument, but also what we've been discussing over the course of the entire unit, which is how we make an argument. So I want you to spend, let's say, 2 minutes with your partners in the discussion here. Share that sentence with them. Share also your other observations on the text itself. What did you think about Wright's argument? Why college is and it shouldn't have to be for everyone. Okay? 2 minutes with your partner, have that conversation. Get started.
I think you'd like it. That's interesting. The district you're thinking for you? It's the district purchased. This doesn't really matter, but Unit 4 is taking more schedule than we thought. We're also able to do 3 next week, so I'm trying to work through right campus in 1 day. About to. I was like, we're seeing so much at this point, because I didn't hit
Alright, 30 more seconds. Finish up the conversation if you had it. Alright, do me a favor. You can talk with your partner about this too, but I want you to choose 2 of the most important paragraphs in this essay. I want you to go through this, and again, you can talk with your partner if you want, but next to the 2 most important paragraphs in this essay, I want you to put a star. Okay? Or you can write the words most important on them, that's fine too. Anything to indicate to yourself that without these 2 paragraphs, this essay is lost. It loses its gumption. What are the 2 most important paragraphs in this essay? I have 2 particular ones in mind. Curious if you have the same ones in mind. You're welcome to share those with your partner, by the way. Alrighty, so listen up. You all should have now at least, some of you have 2 that you started, some of you put also what your partners put, which would give you 4. I want us to talk about that just very briefly, not necessarily to nail down the 2 most important, but to discuss different ways that we might anticipate important paragraphs. So, Simon first, because I talked to you. Which one did you say was one of the most important, and then why? And just speak loudly so people can hear you.
We said that one of the most important was paragraph number 37 because it summarizes the main goals of the argument.
Okay, so everyone take a look at paragraph 37. Okay, that's at the very end of the text. Is it the last paragraph? Alright, last paragraph. Important because it sums up the argument. Okay? Everything comes before, but you have the summed up argument in paragraph 37. That's a pretty good reason. Not bad. Harshad, what did you say?
I said 36.
Okay, why?
Because it says we can, and then he said we continue to push most of our young people through a single form. It kind of like summarize the entire thing, but like in one paragraph, like he did main details.
Okay, does 37 not do that? Or does you think 36 does that better?
Yeah, 36 is out of it.
Sonny, what do you think about that?
I disagree because, well, at 36, hold on. I just read it. Oh, yeah, okay, because 36, while he is summarizing it, he isn't saying what he believes, he's saying what everybody else said. He's saying we continue to push most of our, but he's saying, in 37, he's saying what we should do to like fix the problem. In 36, he's just saying what the problem is.
Harshad?
Sorry, 36 is like the points he said. 37 is like what he's trying to state, like overall, like what the
So
message
those
he's trying to
people
get
are
out.
kind of like, work together.
And that's what the thought.
So do you still think 36 is more important?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
I'll stay my ground.
Alright, let's think about parts of an argument really quickly. Does anyone know what part of an argument paragraph 37 is? Huh? Paragraph 37, you know what part of the argument that is? We talked about this with Obama. It is part of the conclusion, but he's doing something in there. Obama had the same thing. Starts with a C as well.
Call that.
There you go. Okay? Call to action. And Simon tapped into this, so the only reason I'm mentioning it is that's what he says, here's what we should do. Okay? So he makes an argument, but here's what we should do now. Okay? Graham, what was one of your important paragraphs?
I said paragraph 33 because it's like talking about like an alternative kind of to college, and it's saying like instead of rising high school seniors, like they should give them the option to enter a program in a high school that can help them build their knowledge.
Okay, so offering a solution then to a problem that he kind of points out, that's good. I know a lot of people start a whole host of different paragraphs, okay? Focus of that was not necessarily to say that there are only 2, there may be. But the focus here is to say that what you're noticing here is going to be dependent on, of course, who you are and what you're looking for, but also just recognize in a 2.5 paragraph essay, a lot of those points are going to be important, and your ability to discern value and make a case for that does also matter. Okay, flip the page over to page 400. We're going to come back to this conversation, by the way, after we read the next one. Well, let's spend a very, very short amount of time on page 400. Okay, there's a few questions here that I think are helpful in guiding our understanding of right. I think is there 4 questions?